This video has been funded in part by the Guild via Patreon. Check out the links in the description or at the end of this video for more details. Hello everybody, my name is Gildart, and welcome to the 6th annual Musou May. I've been building some Gunpla live on stream, and I've been making a couple of updates throughout the year, so I think you are all well aware that this year's theme is Gundam. And I am super excited because other than Zelda, this is one of the IPs that I am actually familiar with before we got a Warriors game. I grew up in the 90s. I remember being a kid and my parents were trying to make sure I wasn't watching anything super violent. One night, I turned on YTV and was met with Gundam Wing Endless Waltz. I convinced my parents to let me watch because it was a cartoon, which they were cool with. Did I understand what was going on in Endless Waltz? No, I just enjoyed the real big robots fighting. I ended up watching the Gundam Wing anime, and after a while Seed would come out, which I couldn't get into. I would later watch many other Gundam series including Seed, and would also get into the games and even Gunpla. Coming back to the Dynasty Warriors Gundam series after building so many different model kits and watching more of the anime, I've learned to appreciate more of the mobile suits that I didn't really care for when I was younger. But I also want to talk about how incredible it is that we got a Warriors spin-off of the Gundam franchise to begin with. Gundam is massive, probably one of the biggest IPs that Koei has taken on for a Warriors spin-off besides Zelda and maybe One Piece. The first game released exclusively on PS3 on March 1st, 2007 in Japan as Gundam Musou, and on August 28th and November 9th in North America and Europe respectively for both PS3 and 360 as Dynasty Warriors Gundam. Japan would later get a 360 port in October of the same year. I always thought the name Dynasty Warriors Gundam was weird. Like at this point, we already had Samurai Warriors, which would lead you to believe that a Gundam spin-off would be called Gundam Warriors in a similar fashion to the Japanese name. But here we are with Dynasty Warriors Gundam. Odd names aside, I was super excited when this was originally announced that I was on the edge of my seat waiting for its release. But before we get too far into this video, don't forget to give this video a like, comment with your thoughts below, and of course, subscribe if you haven't already. Alright, it's time to finally jump into Dynasty Warriors Gundam with the first probe. Okay, can we just start with the way that this game looks? This came out after Samurai Warriors 2, but before Dynasty Warriors 6, and honestly, it looks great for the time. Like, there is quite a bit of detail in the mobile suit designs. They all look just like I remember them from the anime, but more importantly, they're all scaled correctly. If you go and grab a 1/144th scale original Gundam, the RX-78-2, like this entry grade I have, and the same scale DOM, like this high grade, they will look exactly the same in-game. On top of that, suits from Gundam Wing are slightly smaller than the Universal Sentry suits. Like, look at this high grade Wing 0 next to the same entry grade. This is the exact same in the game, not to mention how fucking gigantic Musou Gundam is. I built the master grade of this live on stream, and if you're interested in how that was, you can check out the VODs of the live stream over on the second channel. But it's not just the Gundams that are scaled correctly to each other. The world around them is properly scaled. There's something about going from the 360 version of Samurai Warriors 2 or Dynasty Warriors 5 Empires to this, because those games were originally built with the PS2 in mind. Therefore, a lot of the environment was built off lower quality textures. But when you play Dynasty Warriors Gundam, you can see the trees, you can see the fields, and how small they are compared to the mobile suits. Seriously, when you're fighting in an open and barren area, the scale of the mobile suits kind of leaves your brain for a moment, because they're all around the same size with the exception of Musou. But the moment that you're walking around a city or a forest, you realize just how big you are. As well, if we're talking about looks, I have to mention the overall designs of the game as well. The mobile suits aren't overly stylized or complicated in design. If you're a fan of Gunpla, imagine a look somewhere in between a high grade and a real grade. There's a reason the master grade Wing 0 on my desk doesn't have any decals on it, and that's because it's so close to how it looks in Dynasty Warriors Gundam. I do think that if we were to see a Dynasty Warriors Gundam release on modern consoles, I'd like to see them reach the master grade level of detail and maybe include the decals to the models. But what we got here and in future installments is just perfect. Cut! on! But you know what's not perfect? The story. I will say that in typical classic Warriors game fashion, each character gets their own story, which is really cool. This is where I first experienced the story of the original Mobile Suit Gundam, Zeta, and Double Zeta. But here's the thing, that is all that's here. On top of that, you can only play as Amuro, Char, Camille, Shirako, Judo, and Haman. Those are all of the characters you get to play as in the official story mode. On top of that, you only play one stage as Char in Mobile Suit Gundam. All of the other 4 stages, you're playing as Quattro in Zeta. I'm kind of disappointed they didn't split Char's story into 2 characters so that you can play 4 stages as the original Char, then 3 stages as Quattro. As well, there seems to be story beats missing from this mode. With Mobile Suit Gundam, you would think that you would start where the anime starts at side 7. When you first load up the game, you're likely to pick Amuro to start things off. It is nice how his first words to introduce the stage are literally the opening of the anime.
Half a century has passed since Earth's overpopulation forced humanity to begin colonizing space. The giant colonies orbiting Earth have become a second home for humanity, where people are born, live, and die.
But the first stage isn't on side 7. It starts at Odessa when you're fighting against Rambarel and Makuve. But you don't even fight Makuve in his Gian. You only fight Rambarel in his Goof and the Tri-Stars in their Doms. With Zeta, I only just started to watch it earlier this year, and I noticed that the Rick Diaz that Apoli and Roberto pilot are the same red variant that Quattro pilots as opposed to the dark gray ones that they pilot in the anime. Would it have been too much trouble to create a different color palette similar to the thing that they did with the Mark II and the Cublaze? Then we move on to the original story mode, and this is where the majority of the characters are. While the official story has 6 characters to play through, the original story has 16. Alongside the others I mentioned, we have Emma, Jared, Ru, Puru, Puru2, Domon, Master Asia, Hiro, Miliardo, and Loran. Now, even though we have 16 playable characters, we have 18 different mobile suits. Gundam, Char's Zaku 2, Char's Gelgoog, Gundam Mark II, both regular and Titan, Hyakushiki, Zeta, the O, Double Zeta, Cublaze Mark II, both black and red, Burning Gundam, Master Gundam, Wing Zero, Epion, Turn A, and Musha. That being said, not all mobile suits play differently. Both the regular and Titan Gundam Mark IIs have the exact same moveset as well as the 3 Cublaze. Now, it may seem like we're given a good variety to play here, but beyond the characters and mobile suits, there really isn't much. One issue is that not only do some mobile suits have cloned movesets, but some pilots straight up just use the same mobile suit as somebody else. So you're going to feel like you're replaying the same stories quite frequently in later game if you don't mix it up. On top of that, probably the main issue of the original story is the use of the exact stages. I didn't actually go looking into how many stages there are, but I would say there are more than 5 stages, but less than 10. The reason I know that much is because not every character is going to have the exact same 5 stages, but no one has a completely unique one either. I honestly can't believe this because in the official story mode, there is a handful of stages that could have been used to mix things up in this mode, and this is where you're going to be spending almost 3/4 of your time playing this game. I understand that the purpose of the original story mode is one about all these characters coming together due to a mysterious planet that houses Musha Gundam, but the fact that they reuse literally the exact same stages when they have access to others just makes no sense at all. I do need to mention a bunch of little things that I enjoy about the first Dynasty Warriors Gundam. The first being just how simple it is to get everything. You don't have to play on different difficulties or play stages in specific ways to unlock any of the mobile suits or characters. You just need to play it. You don't even need to play through all of the official and original stories in order to unlock everything either. I would say by the time you finish all of the official story mode and about 60 to 70% of the original stories, you should have everything unlocked. That being said, you will need to go for full completion of all stories if you want complete and utter flexibility. What's nice about Dynasty Warriors Gundam is that once you've completed a character's story, you can then go into that character's story stages as any mobile suit you've unlocked. In order to unlock more, you just need to keep completing more stories. Once you've finished original mode with Amuro, Camille, Judo, Domon, Hiro, and Loran, you'll unlock Musha Gundam for use as any pilot that you've completed their story with. This is really cool because you don't really get to play play too much as Zaku 2, so I really enjoyed this. As well, the game gives you something else to work towards if you want that absolute 100% completion. Both pilots and mobile suits have their own individual levels. Your pilot level helps you determine your melee shot and defense stats, while your mobile suit level determines your armor, SP gauge, and thrusters. Melee is obviously your close range attacks, but sometimes your charge attacks may involve shot damage instead. So if you want to take on the harder difficulties, you need to make sure your pilot is paired with a mobile suit that complements their abilities. As well, mobile suit levels are not shared between pilots, so you can't really level up Epion as Milliardo, then take it into a stage as Amuro. What is shared, however, are parts, which act like stat boosting items from classic Dynasty and Samurai Warriors games. There are different engineers and different parts to equip. Each engineer uses the same parts, but depending on the engineer, the stat increases will be different. On top of that, by equipping multiple of the same part or from the same engineer, you'll get a multiplier bonus for the stat boosts that you get. You can earn these parts by taking down other ace pilots and by picking these up randomly. You can obtain and equip up to 3 of the same part under the same engineer. Since these are shared, you can take a mobile suit into battle as one character until you get some good parts. That way it helps with another character that pilots that mobile suit if you want to unlock them and start at level 1. Pilots can also obtain skills after battle that provide you with some sort of buff, like being able to shoot piercing rounds or earning more experience for your pilot or mobile suit. Last, I need to mention the music in this game because it is so good. It's like the perfect mix of symphonic rock and electronic. It's symphonic rock. Okay, I'll see myself out. But seriously, the sheer atmosphere this music gives off is perfect for Gundam. The rock side of things keep the usual Dynasty Warriors feel alive with groovy riffs and distorted harmonic melodies, but then the synth parts come in to provide a more mechanical sound without taking too much away from the usual Musou butt rock style. Though at first glance it may not look like a Warriors game, it definitely sounds like one. Con! Why is it that almost every year I have to have this con in at least one Musou review? No matter what the theme is, there is always a game that we never got. There are loads of examples when it comes to any series in this franchise. One of those was Gundam Musou Special on PS2, which came out on February 28th of 2008. In a similar fashion to Dynasty Warriors 6, Dynasty Warriors Gundam originally released only for the Xbox 360 and PS3, but almost a year later we got a release on the previous generation console. Not only that, it got more content than those who bought the HD release. I don't know why Koei decided this was a good idea for both of these games, to release a version on an older console with additional content and not release that content on the current generation as DLC. First off, Gundam Musou Special comes with 2 new original mode stories, one for Musha Gundam and the other for a brand new character and mobile suit, Musha Gundam Mark II. Yeah, for the longest time I also thought that Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 was the first appearance of Musha Gundam Mark II, but it's actually here since Gundam Musou Special released on February 28th, 2008, with the Japanese release of Gundam Musou 2 hitting shelves December 18th of the same year. Both of their stories kind of follow the same gist from what I can tell. The big difference between the 2 Mushas and other pilots is that after you complete the stories, they can't pilot other mobile suits, which does make sense. I mean, they're sentient mobile suits. They're too big to get into another mobile suit. Beyond these 2 stories, everything else is the exact same from what I can tell. No new story missions, no other new mobile suits or pilots. I won't discuss too much more about Gundam Musou Special beyond this because I do plan on uploading an import report episode on it at some point in the future. Unfortunately, I didn't get the time to work on it for Musou Mei, but I do plan on touching on it and whether or not it's worth importing. It's just sad to think that the Gundam series of Warriors games is also plagued with Japanese exclusive versions. I guess I'll just have to put this entry next to Dynasty Warriors 5 on 360, Samurai Warriors 3 on PS3, Warriors Legend of Troy on 360, all the PSP games, and the Vita games, Dynasty Warriors Versus on 3DS. Pro. The next thing I want to talk about is the combat, because we've been talking about this game for so long, and I haven't mentioned that yet. Usually this is something that I mention early on, but I think most of you can tell that it's pretty well what you'd expect from a Warriors game. You have your normal attacks and charge attacks. Both of these act like they do in Dynasty Warriors, except the main difference is your first charge attack is a ranged attack using that mobile suit's gun Gun or Vulcans. Instead of a Musou attack, you have an SP attack. This is similar to what we would later see in Dynasty Warriors 7, where you don't hold down circle or B to keep the attack going. Instead, you can have up to 3 SP attack gauges once the mobile suit level is high enough. Depending on how many are full when you do an SP attack, you'll go through that many stages. You can also do a joint SP attack while playing co-op or with any allied NPC. If you do a joint SP attack with someone your character is familiar with through the story, then you'll do an additional 4th phase. You also have Guard, which is mapped to the usual left bumper or L1, but you have both jump and dash. The jump is mapped to R1, which may take some getting used to for some people. These maps aren't really designed in a way that you'll need to use jump, so I didn't really use it too often. Your dash is mapped to A or X. This is what you'll be using most often to get around the map and dash between groups of enemies. You have a dash attack as well, which is a string of normal attacks that you can finish with a shot from your gun. You can also dash right after a charge attack, which will push you forward and damage enemies in front of you. You can then chain this into a dash attack to really deal the damage to the enemy officers. If you're playing as Zeta, Double Zeta, Wing, or Epion, you can also transform into their flight modes by jumping then dashing. When standing on the ground, dashing can only go for a short period of time, while jumping and dashing with any other mobile suit, it will extend the amount of time that you can dash. But with transformable mobile suits, you can dash until you either let go of the button or you run out of thruster. I maxed out Wing Zero pretty early on because it was such a cinch to whip around the map in flight mode. Plus, at the time, Wing was the only Gundam I had seen. Hey, at least I'm well educated now. Con! Now it's time to end the pros and cons with everybody's favorite part, my various complaints. Starting off, I know I mentioned the music before, but there's something very important that keeps this from being a top Warrior soundtrack, and that's how little variety there is in the music. It feels like we've gone back to Dynasty Warriors 2, where there's only about a dozen songs that are used. The other issue is how frequently certain songs come up, especially while playing original mode. Just like the amount of stages that are reused, the amount of songs that play tend to repeat very frequently. That being said, when I was playing Gundam Musou Special on PS2, I heard more music than what we got. When I first started the game up, I decided to play as Amuro. He's kind of like the Zhao Yun or Yukimura of this series. They're usually the ones that you're going to start with, and I recognized the music that was playing. It sounded like a remix from the original Mobile Suit Gundam anime. It was amazing! Then while I was playing as Camille, I could hear the opening theme to Gundam Zeta. Finally, when I played as Hiro in the original mode, it all came to a boiling point when I heard a Musou remix of Just Communication. You could bet your second ass cheek that I was jamming out to this while piloting Wing Zero. But then I got curious. I had only played the game in English on 360, so I imported a Japanese release on PS3, and wouldn't you know it, it's there too. Like, are you kidding me? Not only did we miss out on a release of Dynasty Warriors Gundam on PS2, but it had more content than the HD release, and all of the Japanese releases had music from the anime that we didn't get. I can't believe they never released Musou Gundam Mark II and the anime music as DLC for us. It's just so disappointing. On top of the missing music, both the HD and PS2 versions of the game are missing seemingly important mobile suits. Whether it's that we're missing the Gun Tank, Gian, Gog, Akai, Methis, Gaplant, or Galbaldi completely from this game, or things like Char Xiong and Zagok are not playable but exist in the game. I also felt like Rambarel's Goof, as well as the Palace-Athene, and this one I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce, should have been playable in this game, with how important they are and how often they appear. I also don't know anything about Double Zeta, so there's likely even more mobile suits that we should have had, whether as NPCs, soldier units, or even completely playable. Then there's a couple of complaints I have about the way the game controls. Like, first off, can we talk about how the camera is inverted? I know I mentioned this in the past with the first Warriors Orochi, but come on! I'll say it again, this came out after Samurai Warriors 2, which had the option to switch camera inversion. Why in the hell isn't this an option available for Dynasty Warriors Gundam? There is a camera option in the settings, but it only controls vertical inversion, not horizontal. And then there's the whole dashing mechanic. It does feel absolutely natural to put dash where you'd usually have jump, and have jump on the bumper, but the issue isn't with the button placement, it's with the function itself. You may want to use your dash thrusters to get from point A to point B quickly, but you can't just hold A or X until your thruster gauge depletes. You have to hold A to dash for a short period of time, then your mobile suit goes through a short reset animation, then you have to hold A for another short dash. You pretty much have to do this over and over and over again unless you're playing as one of the transformable mobile suits. The last thing I'll mention about controls is with the combat. I mentioned it as a pro earlier, but there's something that really brings this game down. Dynasty Warriors 6 came out later in the same year as Dynasty Warriors Gundam, but there's something about the combat that's slightly reminiscent. It's not as bad as the Renbu system, but you only get the 4-hit combo that you start off with, just like in Dynasty Warriors 2, but with a touch of Dynasty Warriors 6. You see, as you level up, you gain more hits to your combo, but it just repeats the same 4 hits up to 3 times. The charge attacks also don't change, so it's this weird feeling that you haven't really unlocked a longer moveset, it's just less of a wait time between combos. That's it. I also noticed how much more challenging this game is. Even with a maxed out Hero and Wing Zero, I found it difficult to take out the final boss of some stages, even on easy. The final general is just such a damage sponge. Enemy soldier units are relatively easy to take out, but when you're on the last stage trying to finish things, you are forced to pummel an enemy over and over until they go down. Lastly, something I really find weird is that Dynasty Warriors Gundam has no in-game cutscenes. Everything is pre-rendered. Now, that in and of itself isn't very bad. Dynasty Warriors 6 did this. The only thing that would make the in-game cutscenes better is if the mobile suit you're using would actually appear in it, but it doesn't make sense to do that. Where my complaint actually lies is the fact that these cutscenes are letterboxed. I don't understand this choice. It's not even the usual 95% letterboxing that you'd see on an overscan TV. It's larger than that. So even if you have an older TV with overscan, you're going to notice this really weird issue. The cutscenes are also still in 16:9 aspect ratio. This is the only HD Warriors game that does something like this, and I just don't understand this choice at all. In the end, Dynasty Warriors Gundam is a great start to the series, and I didn't even think that this would become one. When the first Gundam game came out, I thought this was all we would get. I was so excited to hear that a new Warriors game was coming out and that it would be based around Gundam. The thought of playing as Wing Zero on a Warriors-style battlefield was so enticing, and when I got my hands on it, I was so ready to experience literally every aspect of it. That being said, Dynasty Warriors Gundam serves better as an entry game than one of the best spin-off titles. Even games like Arslan the Warriors of Legend provided more to the player, and that did not perform as well as it should have. Though it was fun, Dynasty Warriors Gundam has a lot of areas to improve, and that is why I give the first Dynasty Warriors Gundam a 6 out of 10. Overall, it's just plain fun. It also introduced me to a bunch of new Gundams that I hadn't seen before. Like I said, I had only watched Wing before this. Now that I've watched the original Mobile Suit Gundam and Zeta, I appreciate their stories much more, and I see how much this game has actually cut out and skipped over. Without experiencing the anime, I was just skipping the story parts and enjoying the gameplay. But now that I know, it leaves me wanting so much more. On top of that, originally, not seeing any Gundam Wing story outside of the original story was disappointing. I really thought someone like Sandrock would have been perfect for Warriors gameplay. That being said as well, the gameplay could have been better. Since they decided to have the 4-hit combo repeat, even after unlocking more moves, it never really feels like you're making too much progress. And that's the big reason I couldn't put this game any higher. Progress is really important in a Warriors game. Without it, I find I never really want to go back to play it. Dynasty Warriors 2 and 6 have this feeling. Once you're done with the story, there's really not much to keep you coming back. I completed the last achievement for this game live on stream, and I don't have any reason to go back to it. I don't even have any desire to go back and get all of the parts for Wing Zero or level up all the other pilots and mobile suits. There's nothing else for me here, and if it weren't for the achievements, I probably would have never gone back to it to begin with. If you're looking for an entry into the Dynasty Warriors Gundam series, I would have a hard time recommending this game over any of the others. The only way that I should say that you should check this out is if you actually want to get the achievements for it, or if you think you need to experience this entry and you find it for cheap enough. Just know that the PS3 version does not have trophies. And would I recommend that you import Gundam Musou Special over this? Well, you'll just have to wait and find that out when I get the time to do the import report episode. So keep an eye out for that, or if you're watching this in the future, check out the iCard with a link to the video. But like I said, I can't recommend this entry when we have the other 3 games. So that must mean that it only goes up from here. right? All 3 other games must be better. I hope my concerns and complaints only get better with each release. I'd really like to see my complaints around combat, story, and mobile suit availability get addressed. I would also really like to play as my favorite Mono-Eye, the Goof. With its beam scimitar, it would be awesome to play as. I just know it. Hello everybody, my name is Chris Gildart, and welcome back to another pros versus cons review. I would say that I have spent a decent amount of time with every Dynasty Warriors Gundam game working on these reviews. However, before I started working on the reviews, Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 was probably the one that I spent the least amount of time with. When I loaded up most of my save files, I had spent anywhere from 80 to over 100 hours with each Gundam game. That being said, Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 only had about 60 hours put into it. There were lots of achievements left to unlock and still characters and mobile suits for me to work toward. So I not only saw this as an opportunity to dive back in and refamiliarize myself with this entry, but also to work towards that coveted 100%. Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 originally launched on the PS2, PS3, and 360 in Japan on December 18th, 2008. While the Western release would hit all of the same platforms in April of the following year. When I learned about Gundam Musou Special on PS2 releasing after the first Dynasty Warriors Gundam with additional content, much like Dynasty Warriors 6, I was surprised to see Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 also receive a PS2 release at the same time as the HD ports. Starting things out, I'd say that Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 serves as a similar sequel to Dynasty Warriors 3. Though the first game is a great foundation for the series, it did leave a lot to be desired after you get the main gameplay loop out of the way. Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 provides updates to the overall gameplay mechanics, visuals, roster, and so much more. The thing is, this is also when Koei was trying to experiment more with their formula. Between 2007 and 2009, we would receive Dynasty Warriors DS, Dynasty Warriors 6, the first Strike Force, and Samurai Warriors 3, all of which have varying opinions among the fans. So some of the changes made with Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 fit into this experimental stage as well. I'm gonna be honest here, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how my opinion of this game turns out, considering it's been so long since I last played it. But before we go too far, don't forget to give this video a like, comment with your thoughts below, and of course subscribe if you haven't already. Alright, no more delays, it's time to find out if the upgrades that we got from the first game are worthwhile with the first Pro. Alright folks, overall this game looks a whole lot better. I know it's still not outputting at the same level as a PS4 or Xbox One could provide, but when you see these visuals, you'll know right away that it's an upgrade from the first game. The first Dynasty Warriors Gundam didn't look bad by any means, but the colors were more dull, fitting well into the 7th generation. At times, it even looked blurry due to the way that the 720p graphics get upscaled. Depending on what was happening on screen, the PS3 version looked better, while sometimes the 360 one did. With Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2, both consoles seem to be relatively on par, with the only plus being that the PS3 version receives 60 frames per second on cutscenes, while the 360 is locked at 30 for everything. Even on PS2, this game looks really good when you consider the hardware. One of the biggest things that I like is just how shiny the mobile suits are. I feel like you're taking a brand new model out onto the battlefield every time. When I first put this game in, I was taken aback by just how much it makes the mobile suits pop. One thing I do like is that some of the stages from the first game have been carried over to the sequel, and that helps to show the difference in the graphics. When you're running through the forests outside of Jaburo, it's more lush and colorful. Even the more dull environments like the desert or space look more vibrant in this engine. On top of the in-game moments looking beautiful, the cutscenes in this game are taken that much farther with this visual style. It's awesome to see the iconic moments from Mobile Suit Gundam, Zeta, Double Zeta, and Char's counterattack, while getting original cutscenes from Mission Mode. There's even extra bits of detail, like when Dazzle exits the Big Zam and starts firing at the Gundam himself. There is an actual model for a character in a spacesuit. They could have gone the lazy route and just not have this cutscene in, but they went that extra mile. It's a similar situation when Kara gets captured by Gyune. There's a model for that pilot. Also, you gotta love the original cutscenes from Mission Mode. Seeing mobile suits from various series interacting with each other is really just cool in my opinion. The main point of this pro is that Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 looks pretty as fuck. run! This was mentioned in the review of the first game, but this issue persists with the sequel. That issue being the official story mode. Like I said in the last point, we get to see story moments from the original Mobile Suit Gundam, Zeta, Double Zeta, and Char's counterattack, meaning we only get one additional series in this game's story. As great as it is to see Char's counterattack recreated in this game's engine, it is disappointing that we don't see any more stories included here. Meanwhile, we still have characters in suits from Wing, Turn A, G Gundam, F91, Victory, and C Destiny. The good news is that we get to see a lot more scenes and battles from these 4 series that appear thanks to the addition of new suits and characters from the first game. It's not like you'll have any less content playing through official mode, but the unfortunate fact is that you'll probably be spending the same amount of time with it. Shirako and Haman have been removed from official mode, meaning you only play through Amuro's, Char's, Camille's, and Judo's story. This is unfortunate because in the first game, though we play the same stages for some characters, we did get to see some different perspectives, and the stage either played out a little different, or we got character-specific dialogue and cutscenes. I also honestly think that it would have been awesome to play through the Jaburo stage as Char Sagak and Aboaku as the Xiang. Then when you think about the other characters that have now become playable in mission mode that could have had a couple of stages in official mode from their perspective, there is a lot of missed opportunity. Kai, Hayato, Slager, Makuve, Rambarel, and Dazzle are all playable from the original Mobile Suit Gundam. Shirako and Haman were removed from the Zeta storyline, but we also get to play as Emma, Jared, Yazan, Rakoa, Sarah, Four, and Rosamia. Even though the first game you could only play as Emma and Jared in the original mode, it would have been cool to see them upgraded for Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2. Then with Double Zeta, you have Ru, Puru, Puru 2, and Glemmy. Only the latter was added as playable for this game, but again, would have been cool to see these characters get some story stages. The only characters other than Amuro and Char that are playable for Char's counterattack are Quest and Gyune. It still would have been nice to be able to see all of these perspectives of the battles that take place. Maybe even some what-if scenarios, like if the Xiang won against the Gundam, or if Gyune was able to take out the new Gundam and win over Quest. There are some what-if like missions in mission mode, but they aren't quite the same as I envision. Instead of being a what-if based on an already established battle, we get to see something like Milliardo joining Char in trying to drop Axis on Earth, while Hiro, Amuro, Domon, and Gingham team up to stop them. I'm not saying those moments aren't appreciated. They are cool, but I would slot that in as a hypothetical scenario, while what I want is some what-ifs. Just some slight alterations on battles we would have already experienced. These hypothetical moments happen by playing through each character's story within mission mode. This is Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2's version of original mode. Not only do you get to play through a character's specific story, but this is where a bunch of the post-story content is. This can be anything from a battle of just Zaku's to your license missions that you'll need to play with each character so that they can pilot certain mobile suits. You're going to be spending a whole lot of time in this mode, so it's also very disappointing that the story missions aren't nearly as cool as the first game. Like I said, you get some hypothetical moments where characters from various series band together against a common enemy, but the issue with this is that there's no overarching story. In the first game, there are different teams that band together to fight against Musou Gundam and other teams for a common goal. Hiro, Master Asia, and Jared is a cool combo, but my favorite was Milliardo, Domon, and Puru. No matter who you played as, these teams and the general storyline were the same. This helps to connect all the stories while giving you a different experience with each team. It just would have been nice to have an overarching original story for mission mode. Pro. Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 didn't just change things with its mode structure and visuals, it also changed a lot about the combat that just improves on every aspect of what we got in the first game. One of my biggest complaints about combat in the first entry was how when you level up and gained a longer combo, it was just the original 4-hit combo repeated. With Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2, we get the combo upgrade we needed originally. Now as you level up, you can reach a 6-hit combo with certain mobile suits. There have also been some charge attack changes like Wing 0 C3. Overall, this alone is a great improvement, but Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 doesn't stop there. Dash attacks can not only be chained one after another as long as you have thruster left, but you can end these with a charge attack, rather than your normal shot attack from the first game. On top of that, Musous have been adjusted. In the first game, as you level up, you earn 3 total Musou bars. With each Musou bar, your attack would have up to 3 phases. Now, you can still get up to 3 Musou bars, but instead of having phases, that first phase is just extended. You also get aerial Musous that is different from your ground Musou, and for some of the mobile suits that appeared in the first game, they took the animation from one of the other phases for this. As well, combination Musous have a different animation too. Dashing has been made so much better as well. Instead of only being able to dash for a short burst of time, you can now hold down X or A and you'll just keep going until you run out of thruster. If you're piloting a transformable mobile suit, you don't need to jump then boost in order to transform. Instead, you just need to double tap X or A. This usually makes your thruster gauge deplete slower, so if you can transform, it's good to get around larger maps. Then there's something that I think is the best aspect of the Dynasty Warriors Gundam series. Only the first game didn't have this feature, but every entry since this one has it. Also, no other Warriors game has done this either. Now, some of you are questioning what I'm building up to, but those of you that have played these games will know that I am talking about every mobile suit that appears in this game is playable. That means even the foot soldier units like Zaku's and Jim's. The closest we've come to this is Nene's special attack in Samurai Warriors 2. The big difference is that with Nene's ability, you can only become a random foot soldier unit that's nearby. If you get hit, you turn back to Nene. With Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2, you are playing as that unit from the start of the stage until the end. I guess the other closest would be Outlaw and Ken's Rage, but I wouldn't really consider that because he has a fully fleshed out moveset. There are 3 separate types of mobile suit units. The first are the ones piloted by the main characters that require a license to pilot. These have the full 6-hit combo I was talking about before. These would be suits like Wing Zero, F91, Strike Freedom, etc. The next stage would be similar to the unique NPCs of Samurai Warriors 5, but instead of having a full 6-hit combo that's a clone of someone else, they have their own unique 4-hit combo that might be cloned among similar looking mobile suits. These would include the Jagdauga and the Palace Athene. They would be the mobile suits that appear throughout the story, but aren't the important characters per se. Not only are they limited to a 4-hit combo, but their Musou attacks aren't affected by the combination Musous or how many bars you have. They only consume 1 Musou bar and aren't usually as devastating as the main mobile suits. Their dash attacks are also only 1 singular attack, rather than a combo that you can finish with a charge attack. The final unit type are the foot soldier units. These are the ones that you'll see everywhere. The green Zaku's, Jim's, the frickin' ball. The big difference between these units is that they don't have a charge attack at all. Instead, they have a long string of normal attacks. Similar to the 4-hit combo units, grunt suits only have a single dash attack and their Musous only consume 1 bar and are less effective. This exponentially increases the mobile suit roster from 18 to 66. Just making the suits from the first game playable would have been a big change, but they even went ahead and added more on top of that. There are even challenges around using foot soldier units. This, on top of mission mode, will keep you coming back to this game over and over again. And even though we had an explosion in the mobile suit roster, there are some odd choices made with what we have. First off, something that I mentioned in the first review is that the Rick Diaz that are piloted by other people are all red. In the anime, only Quattro's is red until he gets the Hyakushiki. Then Apolly and Fa get to pilot the red model. We still don't have the gray one, and I don't understand why they wouldn't just put a color variant in here already. I also made a complaint about Turn A being included in the first game with no rival or partner from their series, but we now have Gingham and the Turn X. The thing that sucks about this is that the Turn X is only a 4-hit combo suit. It feels so weird to have a rival for a character who has a 6-hit combo and the other only has a 4-hit. On top of that, Char's Zagok and the Zhang only have a 4-hit combo as well. You would think that Char, being such an important character, would receive all 6-hit combo mobile suits, especially the Zhang. I can kind of understand the Zagok because it only appears in 1 stage, but the Zhang is essentially the final boss of the Mobile Suit Gundam storyline. Back to the topic of variants, there is only 1 model for the ball with a singular cannon on top. Meanwhile, there are 2 versions of the ball, one with a single cannon and one with 2. This could have been implemented like a a costume option. Suits like the Cubile, Gundam Mark II, Rick Diaz, and of course the balls could have all had variant options. Remember folks, it's perfectly normal for your balls to be a little different. The moveset could also still change if they choose to do that. Another variant option could have been the Dom and Rick Dom. There's not really a whole lot of difference, it's mostly in the backpack and the bazooka, but I think it would have been nice to see the Black Tri-Stars piloting the Doms when the Rick Doms appear as foot soldier units. Again, it's not like they have to have different movesets, just add it as a costume option. I also have to mention Rambaral, who is one of my favorite characters. Even though he serves Zeon, he has his own ideals and is probably one of the most down-to-earth enemies in the original Mobile Suit Gundam. He has even more development in Gundam The Origin, Advent of the Red Comet. He represents a massive opposition to Amuro and the Earth Federation forces. So why is his mobile suit considered a grunt suit? I'm not saying make it a full 6-hit combo, but at least a 4-hit one. You could still use this goof moveset for a mass production style. In the first Dynasty Warriors Gundam, there were these deep blue and a more faded blue goof. If you took the faded model and removed the commander's horn, you could have a foot soldier goof unit and still keep Rambaral as being a big enemy for the Mobile Suit Gundam storyline. Both he and Makuve get the short end of the stick because even the Gian is a foot soldier style. Meanwhile, both Rambaral and Makuve are playable pilots in mission mode. Also on the list of weird choices as well, some mobile suits can only be used on the surface while others can only be used in space. The Ball and Zhang can only be used in space, but this also doesn't make sense because they could just be floating during surface stages. The land-only suits are the Zaku tank, which I'll admit does make a little bit of sense, though it still has flight animations, as well as both Chars and the regular Zagok, and both variants of the Goof. All of these land mobile suits have flight animations, but on top of that, one of the Goof variants is the Goof flight type. Like, it's literally called flight type. How can it not be allowed in space? I think these are designated as only space and only land because they only ever appear in the anime as such. Now we get to talk about all the mobile suits that aren't playable or just aren't in the game at all. First off, there is an additional mobile suit type that I didn't talk about in the last pro, and those are mobile armors. These are giant mobile suits that when you're facing off against them, you need to take out their limbs and weapons to weaken them. They are quite powerful and can be a difficult fight depending on what you're piloting. There are 6 mobile armors, all of which are not playable. This is a big disappointment because I think it would have been a lot of fun to play as one of the Psycho Gundams going on an absolute rampage. Maybe even limiting the player to mobile armor stages so that you don't go wiping out an entire enemy army on a harder stage with ease. As well, the gun tank from the first Mobile Suit Gundam is still missing, even though the Zaku tank is here. Luna Maria Hawk is playable, but her Zaku gunner is nowhere to be seen. Gato, as well as his blue Gelgoog, also appeared in the first game as a non-playable unit, but his character and Gelgoog are completely removed. I don't know why, but they chose to keep Johnny and his Gelgoog in here. I also mentioned in the first review a bunch of other mobile suits that didn't appear from Zeta Gundam that I thought would have been beneficial to add here. So go and check that out if you want to hear me complain more about how we're missing suits from this game. I can't believe it, I still had this much to talk about on a topic of missing suits for the sequel. Pro. Now, as much as I had to complain about, Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 has a lot of little things that just help bring the overall game up in quality. First off, even though I complained about the lack of connection in the mission mode story and the lack of characters in original mode, we still get to see more of the story in general. I can't really speak for the Double Zeta line, but for the original Mobile Suit Gundam and Zeta, we have a whole lot more here. This is thanks to the addition of a lot of specific characters and mobile suits that just didn't appear in the first game. Having mobile armors also allows for the Big Zam and Psycho Gundams to appear. Makuve also finally gets his Gian. It's just such a better story experience, even if there's less characters to play through. Speaking of having more, mission mode may not have a connected story, but it has so much more to play through. This includes each character's stories, as well as faction stories like the Ayug and Zeon, where you can join these factions and fight alongside them for a 2 to 4 stage long story. There are also challenges, like I said before, where you may need to fight as a grunt suit against more powerful enemies. This is also where you unlock the licenses to pilot the various mobile suits. Most license missions involve you increasing your friendship with a character by playing a stage with them as an ally. If you go into a stage where they are an enemy, it will also affect your friendship with them. Mission mode is an incredible improvement on what we got with original mode. This game just has so much more replayability. One of my complaints with the first game was around the inverted camera control. In Dynasty Warriors Gundam, you did have the option to change camera inversion, but it only affected the vertical controls. With Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2, you can actually change both. This was a big pain point for the first Dynasty Warriors Gundam as well as the first Warriors Orochi, both being the only Warriors games with camera controls where you can't change the horizontal option. There's also little bits of extra detail that I noticed as a longtime player of these games. Like I said before, having pilot models in cutscenes was a neat detail, but it goes even deeper. Lots of the conversations that happen in cutscenes and in the middle of battle are taken straight from the script of the anime, but some lines are even re-recorded by the original actors. Then there's something that I only noticed thanks to my time with Gundam Musou Special. You see, in that game, both Musha and Musha Mark II receive their own stories. When you go to unlock the license for these suits, Musha Gundam's mission is in the volcano, which is the first stage of this storyline, and Musha Mark II is in Jaburo, which is at the end. I think this was a neat little detail that they put in. It's just too bad that the West wouldn't really understand it because we didn't get Gundam Musou Special. And now it's time for me to take the negative spin of the last pro, which is all of the things that I didn't like about Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2. First off, I was able to get my hands on a Japanese copy, and I am still sad to confirm that the music from the anime has still been removed. Not overly surprising, which is why I'm not going to say too much beyond that. But I am also interested to see if Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 has some Japanese exclusive songs as well. DLC also leaves a lot to be desired, but I won't really complain too much considering they're all free. It's just some extra missions. If this were a modern game, these would either be charged for or just included as a free update. I would have liked to see some new suits, especially the missing ones that I mentioned before. I will say that though I mentioned the looks of this game as a pro, there is something that I don't like about the changes to this game, and that's the interface. The thing is, with the first game, they almost made it feel like a cockpit. When character portraits would come up, most of the pilots were in their spacesuits, while now they're in their most iconic outfit. Maybe this is a bit of fan service, but I liked it when their suit was more practical. Then there's the fact that it looked like they were coming up on the intercom, almost like a video message. This just helped with the immersion, and I didn't really notice this small detail until it was gone. Lastly, I need to mention something about the combat that I didn't like. One of the additions to the gameplay mechanics is the ability to control the morale bar ever so slightly. The actions you take in combat will affect whether your army does well or poorly. The issue is how it's communicated to the player. When you're doing well, it says that the action is picking up. When you do poorly, it says that the pilots are disappointed in the lack of action. This would make you think that you need to zoom around taking out bases or killing officers in quick succession. Though that can work in your favor, what the pilots are actually looking for is for you to complete the tasks that come up, like taking out specific officers or bases. If you don't do it right away, your allies will be disappointed and morale will decrease. I don't really like this because it's similar to the missions in Arslan, where you must complete them within a certain time frame. Whereas with something like Samurai Warriors, you may have a time limit, but it's whether that mission is a success or a failure. Sometimes it will affect morale, but sometimes it won't. At least it's not exactly like Arslan, and failing the mission within a time limit will also actually cause the whole battle to be lost. That would be even more disappointing. In the end, Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 proved to be the sequel we needed. Much like the upgrade we got from Dynasty Warriors 2 to 3, the second Gundam game is an improvement on everything. I said at the beginning of the review that I hadn't played a whole lot of this entry, which is surprising to me going back to it. I was missing so many achievements, and I am ready to work towards those that I haven't gotten yet. After playing the first Dynasty Warriors Gundam, I felt like I needed more from it. I keep making this comparison, but it was almost exactly like my feelings towards Dynasty Warriors 2. After unlocking everything, I have absolutely no want to go back to it. That being said, with all of the improvements that Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 makes, I can definitely see myself coming back to it even after popping all of the achievements for it. And that's why I'm giving Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 an 8 out of 10. We now practically have the complete story of Mobile Suit Gundam, Zeta Gundam, and Char's counterattack. I still have yet to watch Double Zeta, but I imagine we get to see more of that story as well. Even though the mission mode story lacks the same connectivity of the first game's original mode, mission mode does offer a whole lot of post-game content that you'll never get bored of. Not to mention the explosion in the character roster thanks to the addition of every other mobile suit in this game. Being able to play as grunt suits adds a level of variety that can still be hard to find in many other Warriors games. That being said, I feel there's still some important mobile suits that we're missing, and even though they finally added mobile armors, we can't play as them at all. There have also been many gameplay changes, including the combos for the main playable mobile suits. In the first game, it didn't really feel like you were progressing through levels when you upgraded your combo because it just looped the basic 4 hits. Now we finally have the 6-hit combo we're used to from the classic Dynasty Warriors series. Aerial and combination Musous now provide even more variety in combat. With the additional mobile suits as well, we now have 3 different gameplay types. Your main suits that have the full 6-hit combo, the more generic officers that have the 4-hit combo, and your grunt suits that just loop 2 normal attacks for an 8-hit combo with no charge attack. Overall, I just can't get enough of Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2. Knowing I still have 2 more games to go through before I reach the end of this journey makes me excited to see what's to come. If this game had so many improvements, what does the next game have? And the game after that? What other Gundam series will be added, and what new mobile suits and stories will we get to experience? All I can say is, as ready as I am to jump into the next game, I wouldn't mind spending just some more time with this entry beforehand. Hello everybody, my name is Chris Gildart, and welcome back to another Pros vs. Cons review. It's time to take a look at the Dynasty Warriors game that I've probably spent the most amount of time with overall, but I do need to be honest, it's been a long time since I've played it. The third entry in the Dynasty Warriors Gundam series would see a lot of drastic changes in every aspect, from story to visuals to even gameplay mechanics. Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 released in Japan on PS3 and Xbox 360 on December 16th, 2010, while North America would see it June 28th, 2011, and PAL regions on July 1st. We also got to see 2 fairly big Gundam series in 00 and Unicorn released between Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 and 3, so we can expect the inclusion of some of those mobile suits as well. Jumping back into this game, I know I spent almost 200 hours on it before completely moving on to something else, whereas with Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2, I had only spent about 70 hours before dropping it. Considering I loved the upgrade from the first game to the second, this third entry should be just as much of a jump if you look at the amount of time I spent on it, right? I hear so many people saying that this is their favorite entry. While I was streaming the first game to get all the achievements, the chat would go back and forth between 2, 3, and Reborn for their favorite Dynasty Warriors Gundam. This is also the only entry in the series not to get any extra ports aside from the main home console release. So no PS2 port, no PSP port, and even though the Vita released a year later, we wouldn't see Bandai Namco try to port to that handheld either. So all we have to look at is the PS3 and 360 release. I did import the Japanese version on PS3 as well because the last 2 entries had some exclusive music, so I'm interested to see if that trend continues. And now it's time to find out if all of the time I spent on this game was truly worth it. But before we go too far, don't forget to give this video a like, comment with your thoughts below, and of course subscribe if you haven't already. Alright, no more delays, let's jump into Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 with the first Pro. Let's start off with everyone's favorite topic, the graphics. Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 goes for a cel-shaded look as opposed to the more realistic look of previous games. When you start up the first stage, you'll be greeted with this incredible stylistic change, almost like you've jumped right into the anime. The mobile suits may not be as shiny as they were in the last game, but that's something I'm willing to lose if we get these new visuals. The shading is done to perfection. If you've ever seen someone's custom cel-shaded Gunpla, this is pretty much on par with that. Sometimes it even looks like you're playing a 2D game, but you can still tell based on the shading that these mobile suits are 3D. These spectacular visuals are carried over to the cutscenes, which look even better than the gameplay. With the first Dynasty Warriors Gundam, I complained that there was this weird letterboxing to the cutscenes. With Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2, they removed that, but didn't really make the cutscenes stand out from the gameplay very much. Not that there was anything wrong with that, but when we get a cutscene in Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3, it is an absolute treat. The visuals are way better than in-game. I feel like if we got a new Dynasty Warriors Gundam on modern consoles with a cel-shaded style, the in-game graphics would probably look just as good as these cutscenes. I honestly wouldn't mind watching a Gundam anime like this. We've kind of had that thanks to the advancement of CG and its use in things like Mobile Suit Gundam The Origin. But I'm going to be honest, though Gundam The Origin has more detail in its mobile suits, much like the difference between a good high grade and a decent real grade, the detail and movement in the cutscenes for Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 still look great. There's not many games, even in the Musou franchise, that I would willingly sit down and watch all of the cutscenes for. But with Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3, I am really enjoying watching these. If only we had an HD re-release of this game on PS4 or Xbox One. Hell, I'd even settle for backwards compatibility, but unfortunately, I don't think we're gonna get that. And even if it doesn't, this game still looks great on PS3 and Xbox 360. Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 had probably one of the best improvements in gameplay I've seen in a Warriors game since the upgrade we got from Dynasty Warriors 2 to 3. It literally took every aspect of the first game and improved on it. We also got the ability to play as foot soldier units, which we haven't been able to in any other Warriors game except Samurai Warriors 2 with Nene's special ability and Outlaw's appearance in Ken's Rage. Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 continues to allow the player to select their favorite grunt suits to take into battle, but it does change up a few things that do bring the game down quite a bit. First of all stages now take place on land. There are no space stages necessarily. In the first two games, we had stages where mobile suits would be floating in space with debris scattered around the map, creating the environment. Now, when a stage takes place in the vast open void, you run around on like an asteroid or inside a military base. Most of the stages will take place on an Earth-like stage. You do get some variety, but you can't have a Gundam game without battles actually taking place in the openness of space. On top of that, the design of stages takes a dip now that every stage is just a handful of interconnected bases. At first, you might say, oh cool, this sounds like Gundam Empires, but I assure you,
it is not.
I'll admit, there are different bases that do different things, like a catapult base that can shoot you to a different base after it's been captured, or a base that fires missiles at enemy bases to help take them over. It's not like Empires where you need to create a line between your main camp and the enemies. It's more like the base version of Dynasty Warriors 5, but with more complexities. Where Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 steps away from the praise is how there are just narrow corridors that connect each base. There's rarely any fighting that goes on between bases. You may find a group of 5 to 10 enemy troops heading towards your own base, but there's never skirmishes happening in these pathways. Then there's the fact that morale here is used to respawn officers, meaning you can kill an enemy pilot only to see them respawn later. This also works with allies as well as you. Yes, if you die and there's enough morale left, you can respawn. It's weird. It almost feels like the game was developed with a handheld in mind. Think back to the games like Samurai Warriors State of War or Dynasty Warriors Volume 2. These narrow paths that connect the bases almost feel like a second thought with how little happens in them. It's surprising this game never got any special ports like on the PSP or a later Vita release. I think this stage design would have been great on a handheld because thanks to the way it's been designed, stages also take less time to complete. All in all, I'm just not a fan. Even though they didn't quite stick the landing with changing the stage layout, they did succeed in a similar category to Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2, and that's the changes to the playable mobile suits. First off, we now get suits from more series. I mentioned earlier that Unicorn and 00 had anime releases between the second and third game, and we see the main protagonist and antagonist suits joining the roster for these too. Besides that though, we also get suits from After War Gundam X and 0083 Stardust Memory. It would have been nice to also see some inclusion from War in the Pocket, like maybe Gundam Alex or the Zaku Kai, or we could have seen something from the 8th MS team, like Gundam Ground Type or Easy 8. And you know I'm going to say it, but the Goof Custom would have been great to see. But I digress. The roster has been expanded yet again from 66 mobile suits to 74, and even up to 79 thanks to DLC. We even get new mobile suits from Gundam Wing, which may be one of the reasons I actually played the shit out of this game. We finally get to see the likes of Death Scythe Hell, Heavy Arms Kai, and Tall Geese 2. We also get a new sentient mobile suit in the form of Night Gundam, who also comes from the world of SD Gundam just like Musha and Musha Mark II. I was excited to see this, but it's not not just main character mobile suits that we see entering the fray. We also get new foot soldier units like the Act Guy from many of the Universal Century series, Gedlev and Einarad from Victory Gundam, Dark Army from G Gundam, Kapul from Turn A, and Jin from Gundam Seed. I'm really happy to see that it wasn't just the big guns that were added as playable. It's nice to see them add these grunts into the mix. We also see an update to both Burning and Master Gundam to add idle animations. Considering they're piloted by real people wearing suits that capture their movement, this only makes sense for them to have an idle animation. But wait, there's more! They also decided that some mobile suits deserved an upgrade and gave the Hammerby, Turn X, and Gun Cannon a full 6-hit combo complete with new moves. I complained about the Turn X only being given a 4-hit combo in my last review, but I didn't expect the Hammerby or Gun Cannon to be given the same treatment. I kind of understand the Gun Cannon getting the main character package, but Hammerby is the more surprising one because several characters pilot the Hammerby. But I won't complain if that means that we might have more mobile suits get this treatment in the next entry. The Gian also saw an upgrade from being a normal grunt unit to a 4-hit combo suit. This makes sense because Mukuve is a pretty imposing character in the original anime, and he's playable here. I actually mentioned that in my previous review, so I'm glad to see they understood how some suits should play. I talked a little bit about the story mode in the first 2 games, and in both instances they ended up being cons. For the first game, there were a lot of moments completely omitted from the anime, and while the second game gave us more of the story, it also took away some characters who would have given a different perspective on those battles. Well, I'm here to report that it could have been so much worse. It could have been Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3. You see, this game is a weird anomaly when it comes to its story. The main story mode is completely original and includes 3 chapters. Depending on which character you choose, they will be affiliated with 3 different paths. This may sound like a nice refreshing romp, but the issue is that everybody ends up in the same place. You see, the first chapter has 3 different starting points: those who understand, those who fight, and those who doubt. These are the 3 starting factions. We then see 2 different second chapters with 4 peace and 4 victory. Then the story culminates with all characters sharing the same third chapter, for reform. The biggest issue here is that the story feels truncated, like all the characters just accept that they're all from a different world. They end up on a battlefield together and decide, hey, you fight against the people that were attacking me, we might as well join forces. It's incredibly forced. While there may be small references here and there, like Amuro and Ko talking about how they both know who Gato is, it doesn't really provide any substantial story moments or even any level of fan service. When the story starts to split between 4 peace and 4 victory, it really starts to go down the path of these are the good guys and these are the bad guys of each respective series. We see Amuro, Camille, and Setsuna teaming up while Frontal, Trace, and Char join forces. The final chapter is where everyone joins together to fight against Night Gundam, who was the one that brought them all together. When you step back and look at the whole story, it almost feels like they were chasing a similar theme to the original mode story in the first Dynasty Warriors Gundam, where all the pilots find themselves on a mysterious planet and fight to achieve their dreams. The main thing that holds this third entry back from being on the same level as that story is how there's only one real ending. We start with 3 factions that could have easily had 3 different endings. In fact, it would have been nice to see maybe 5 to 7 different factions based on personalities and ideals that are fighting together for something specific. We could have seen a more grand story that dived into the potential of fan service, but no, we got this. We also didn't really get much in the form of missions from the anime. I will give Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 this: they do include more stories from more anime. Pretty much if there is a character from an anime, we get to see a mission involving a stage from their story. Unfortunately, since Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 doesn't have grunt units for all of the characters from each series, we don't necessarily get the most accurate depiction. For the wing stages, we don't have Leos and Maganax for foot soldiers, and we don't have Sandrock or Ultron. We do, however, get to see the same story missions from series like Mobile Suit Gundam, Zeta, Double Zeta, and Char's Counterattack. The issue here is that there's not nearly as many cutscenes as there are in the first 2 games. In fact, if I recall correctly, there's only 1 cutscene per series, meaning if you're hoping to jump into this game and experience a story you know and love just in a Musou format, you're going to be shit out of luck here. Bro, I know I've been complaining about a lot of the changes that take place in Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3, but there are a few changes that are for the better. First off, victory poses are back. Kinda. The camera pans around the mobile suit and looks up at them with the victory fanfare going on. Though I would have loved to see the old school victory poses make a return, I am cool with this. Whenever I would play something like Dynasty Warriors 7 or 8, I would try to turn the camera in a way that did look at the character closer, kind of making my own pseudo victory pose. So with Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 adding this, it makes me happy that I don't really have to do that myself. I know I also complained about the combat, but not all of the changes are bad. In fact, there's now a partner that you can take into battle with you, and after filling the partner meter, you can have them launch an attack for you. Sometimes this can even be pilots of mobile armors joining you. Depending on the situation and the partner equipped, it can really help you when you're in a bind. As well, if you kill an enemy with a Musou attack, they will explode, dealing damage to the enemies around them. This also happens if you've taken over a base and you kill weakened enemies with a charge attack. It can also be really useful in taking out stragglers after you've captured an enemy base. I also didn't really touch on this in my previous review, but with Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2's mission mode, a lot of the stages are shared between pilots, but you will need to complete that stage individually with each character. This artificially extended replayability. It's fine if there's certain missions that are exclusive to certain characters, but when I have to clear the Zaku collection mission with every single character, I don't want to unless it involves a trophy or an achievement. With Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3, the missions that are shared between characters also share the clear status. The only thing that's not shared between all characters are the story chapters, which are only shared between the ones that actually are affiliated with those factions. That does mean that all the anime story stages appear for every character, but they can only be played as the main character and mobile suit of those stages. For the stages where only specific pilots or suits can be used, you'll be able to find that on the mission select screen. This does unfortunately mean that after you've completed one of the anime stages, you won't be able to go in with a different pilot or mobile suit a la free mode. But missions aren't the only thing that's shared now. Licenses to pilot the main character suits are also shared among all characters. This is so great in my opinion, because in Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2, I mainly played as Hiro. I would unlock all of the licenses for him after increasing friendships enough, but then I would go to play as somebody else and lose all of that progress. Licenses are also just easier to unlock now. Most of them are unlocked by completing the anime stages and then buying the license from the shop. Once it's been bought, you can pilot that suit as any character that you've unlocked. This is with the exception of Night Gundam, who is playable, but can only pilot Night Gundam for obvious reasons. I mean, it would be weird for a sentient giant mech to be piloting another mech, though it would be hilarious to see a Gundam piloting a mobile armor. I guess we did see that in Unicorn with the Neo Geon. Speaking of the Neo Geon, there are still mobile suits missing from the roster even after the additions made in this entry. I wouldn't necessarily expect Neo Geon in this game because Unicorn only started airing in 2010 when this was released, and Wikipedia says it ended in 2014. So I don't know if we would have seen Neo Geon at the time of this game's release. But Luna Maria Hawk is still without her Zaku gunner, even though she is a pilot here. She appears piloting Char's Zaku 2 similar to the previous game, which is super disappointing. We also see Schwartz Bruder from G Gundam join the roster of pilots, but his Gundam Spiegel is nowhere to be seen. I mentioned this earlier, but Sandrock and Ultron from Wing weren't added even though they seem like a perfect fit for a warrior-style game. But for some reason, we have Heavy Arms Kai. Yes, let's not add the ones with swords to our hack and slash game, but we'll add the one with a plethora of guns. Mobile armors are still not playable. The Goof is still considered a grunt unit, even though Rambarel appears very frequently throughout missions. I also don't know how they decided the Gien should become a 4-hit combo suit and not the Goof. Both Makuve and Rambarel are playable pilots. It just doesn't make sense. And Char, Zagok, and Zhang are also still only 4-hit combo suits, even though one of the biggest characters in the franchise is their pilot. And for some reason, they decided the Gun Cannon and Hammerby deserved the upgrade instead. I just don't understand that. I will also mention that there is a loss of scale with Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 thanks to the way the stages have been designed. With the bases the way they are, and the corridors between them all being designed in a way that fit mobile suits perfectly, it means that you no longer feel like you're piloting a giant mech anymore. Every so often you might see a tree or a road and be reminded of the scale of these robots, but then you'll play a stage that looks like you're in a castle and the bricks on the ground will feel too big compared to the mobile suits, almost like you're human-sized. I really miss the old stages where it was an actual environment that you'd be running around with trees, roads, and buildings things giving you a real feel of piloting a giant mech. I will say each mobile suit is properly scaled between each other, so New Gundam is taller than most suits and the wing suits are smaller, but again, it doesn't feel right. Then we need to talk about the music, because not only does the Japanese release of Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 get some music from the various anime, it's new music compared to what we got in the first two games. I'll also mention that the music original to the game is not on the same level as the previous titles. The new music is more J-pop inspired than the symphonic techno rock that we got in the first two games. It doesn't really make you feel like you're pushing through the battlefield anymore. Instead, I feel like a disco ball is gonna drop in the middle of an enemy main camp and we're gonna have a dance-off with glow sticks. Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 also had a lot more DLC than the second game. Where Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 only had DLC stages, we finally get to see some new mobile suits and pilots. I thought this would be a great way to add the characters and suits that I mentioned we were missing, but not only did we only get one character from Gundam Unicorn with the others being from 00, all of the DLC for Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 is no longer available. I don't understand why, because the DLC from the second game is still available for download. I also only had the chance to get Merida with the Kishitria and Mr. Bushido with Susanoo. There are 3 other characters and suits that I didn't get to buy before they were taken down. That includes Lock-On with Chiritum, Alleluia with Arios, and Tierra with the Sarah V. And unless you bought and downloaded these before they were taken away, you have to go without. When I go to do a full review of a game, I do like to make sure that I have the complete package with all DLC. It makes me incredibly disappointed that I can't do that here. In the end, Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 was a mixed bag for me. I love the new look with the cel-shaded graphics so much, and the way they look in the cutscenes just made me want to experience more of the story, even though it just didn't stick the landing. I also liked a few combat changes and the additional mobile suits, even though the stage design wasn't really up my alley. I mentioned it earlier that I think this would have been much better as a portable spin-off, and that really remains true. If this were Dynasty Warriors Gundam Portable, I think it would have been a great entry to have on PSP or even on the Vita. The stages feel shorter, so having a pick-up-and-go Gundam game with this format wouldn't have been too bad. But with this being the next entry in the Gundam Warrior series on home consoles, I do think it's a downgrade overall from Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2. And that's why I give Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 a 7 out of 10. I honestly don't know why I put so many hours into this game back when it first came out, when Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 had about half of that. It doesn't make sense to me, and I would love to go back and put the time and effort I put into this third entry back into the second instead. I miss having the anime story be the main focus above all else. I miss the more open stage design. I can't shake the feeling that this was meant to be a spin-off for a handheld entry. The way the combat controls, it still feels like a Musou game, but playing through these stages just makes it feel like it wasn't actually developed by Omega Force. We also don't get to see a lot of the mobile suits that I feel would have been ideal to include, like Sandrock and Ultron from Wing. It really would have taken 4 to 5 more mobile suits to really be able to have a Wing story stage that felt accurate. Besides Sandrock and Ultron, we could have had a Leo and Maganak, and if you're feeling a little extra, add the Ares as well. I also don't understand how Hammerby and Gun Cannon got upgraded to a 6-hit mobile suit, while the Zhang and Charge Zagok are still left at a 4-hit combo. Then there's the fact that the DLC is no longer available for purchase or download. I was able to re-download the missions and characters thanks to going through my Xbox 360 profile's purchase history, but I shouldn't have to do that. This game can't be complete for me anymore. I will say that luckily the DLC characters do become playable in the next entry, so it's not like I'm missing out on much other than just seeing these mobile suits in this game. It just really disappoints me that I technically have an incomplete version of Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 and there's nothing I can do about it. I will say it's not all bad. There's a reason it got a 7 out of 10. I still had fun overall and was able to just tackle this game without caring much about the story. Much like a classic Warriors game, it was one of those turn off your brain and hack away kind of experiences. I would still recommend people to pick up Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 because it does offer up good fun and a wide range of characters and mobile suits to play as. I'm just hopeful that we see a return to form with the next entry. It doesn't need to blow me away, but I'd just like to see the same highs as Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2. Hello everyone, my name is Chris Gildart, and welcome to the last Musou Mei Pros vs. Cons review. The time has come to put a close to our retrospective of the Dynasty Warriors Gundam series. This year's Musou Mei has been incredible, and I just want to thank you all for such a great time. Revisiting the Gundam series has been a trip and a half. I am overjoyed to have gone through all 4 games again and to have finally experienced the Japanese versions and exclusives. It can be difficult for me to find time to just go back and play these games when I'm usually so busy working on videos. But it must all come to an end now with this final Musou Mei video. Together we will put a close to this year's event as I take a look at the final game in the series, Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn. This entry was released in Japan on December 19th, 2013 as Shin Gundam Musou, while North America got it on July 1st, 2014, and Europe on June 27th, titled Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn. There are quite a few notable changes that this entry brings to the table that I'll be talking about in this video. If I sound a bit more on the serious side right now, it's partly because this is a bittersweet experience. I still have to go back to Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2 and 3 to unlock more trophies and achievements, and that fact is also true for Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn. I know I've been streaming these 3 games throughout the month, but it still doesn't stop me from getting a little emotional as if this is the end. That feeling also extends to the fact that this would be the last Dynasty Warriors Gundam game that we have received to date. I've also noticed a lot of people just don't know about Reborn. When I see most conversations going on about which entry is their favorite, it's usually either 2 or 3. I've mentioned this entry before and had people say, I didn't know there was a 4th Gundam game. Who knows, maybe this entry wasn't all that great and that's why we haven't seen a new entry in a while. I don't even know what they call the next entry in this series. Dynasty Warriors Gundam 5? Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn 2? Or would they just go back to basics and call it Gundam Warriors? Either way, if you enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe for more. Alright, it's time to find out if the Dynasty Warriors Gundam series ends on a good note with the first Pro. For the other 3 games in the series, I complained about the stories provided. In the first game, it was that parts of the original anime were completely omitted from the original story mode. For the second game, it was the lack of different characters which could have provided more aspects to each battle. For the third game, it was that the anime story was relegated to submissions rather than being given the focus it deserved. With Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn, we finally get a decent way to experience the story of the various anime series. In this entry, you get to play through a rather comprehensive story mode for Mobile Suit Gundam, Zeta Gundam, Char's Counterattack, Gundam Unicorn, Gundam Seed, and Seed Destiny. Through these stories, you'll play as the main characters of the anime. This does mean that in Mobile Suit Gundam, you'll primarily be playing as Amuro. That being said, there is usually a stage or 2 in the story where you will play as the side characters. You will automatically swap between characters, kind of like Dynasty Warriors 7's story. The only difference is that you won't have a cutscene that flows back into battle. I was surprised as well when I started playing the Seed Destiny story that it started me out playing as Atherin in a Zaku warrior, just a foot soldier unit. This mobile suit does have a 4-hit combo, so it didn't really feel like the game was nerfing me, but it was really cool. There are also a lot more cutscenes than before depicting the various scenes we know and love. Many of these we've already experienced in the past games, but some for Mobile Suit Gundam, Zeta, and Char's Counterattack we haven't seen before. As far as Unicorn, Seed, and Seed Destiny go, we have never seen these cutscenes before. The story mode here doesn't just cover more story during gameplay either. Between the stages, there are these visual novel style conversations that give you background on the plot and character interactions. One part of the Gundam series that has been missed in earlier entries is the human side of things. They were either lightly dashed in between stages or just weren't implemented properly. Here, it's not the best that it could be, but we at least get to experience the majority of the story for each series. They also include stills from the anime, which is nice to see mixed in with the character portraits. These are skippable even if it's the first time that you view them, so if you don't care about the story, you can just jump right into the action. Then we have Ultimate Mode, which is essentially this game's version of Mission Mode from Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2. Luckily, similar to the way that Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 is structured, these aren't separated by pilot like in the second game. Instead, they are separated by chapters or side stories. I will mention that depending on the chapter, you won't be able to select certain pilots to play, as they might be the main antagonist of that story. Each Ultimate Mode chapter also includes similar visual novel scenes from Story Mode to help build the story around that chapter. These unfortunately don't have any voice acting compared to the story mode scenes, but that's fine. The battles are still voice acted and the story here isn't that incredible, it's really just the missions that keep you coming back. The big difference that Ultimate Mode introduces are objectives. In each stage there will be 3 objectives to achieve victory with either a bronze, silver, or gold medal. Sometimes it can be killing so many enemies or finishing the stage within a certain amount of time. Other Other times, it can be completing the stage with a specific mobile suit. Usually, in these cases, the gold medal is awarded after finishing the stage with a specific grunt suit. There's even a trivia stage, and the gold medal is won by getting every question correct. These medals are the big thing that you'll be aiming for in the post-game as they unlock more characters and suits to use. There is also a card collection aspect to the game, where some cards are locked to certain characters or suits, reaching a total kill count or even getting the gold medal on specific stages. There is just so much replayability here, it's insane! Now, some of you might be thinking, wait, Chris, don't you usually mention the graphics as your first pro? And my answer to that would be, yes, disembodied voice, you are absolutely correct. Then why don't you do that here? Well, that's because it's going to be the first con. Now, let me start off by saying that Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn doesn't look bad. I mean, it does look better than the first game. My issue is with how dull everything looks. I feel like the environment and mobile suits need a little bit more saturation to give them that oomph. With Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2, the mobile suits looked so shiny. It was almost like you were taking it out for its first sortie straight from the manufacturer. Then we had Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3, where they pursued a cel-shaded style that matched the look of the anime. Thanks to this, they were able to add particle effects to beam sabers and gunshots that really made everything pop. With Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn, it's like we get an upgrade in detail at the cost of that added character. Like I said, mobile suits do look like they have more detail than before. This is like the difference between the entry grade and the Beyond Global high grade RX-78-2 with how much detail we see, but it's met with dull colors that don't pop. Metal doesn't shine, and it culminates in an overall look that doesn't seem to stand out among the crowd. It's not quite as bad, but it almost feels like a similar theme of brown filters that we saw in the middle of the 7th generation. It's sad to see this game not stand out with its visuals when the last 2 entries really showed what they were capable of. It also doesn't help that this game only released on PS3. With the first 3 games, we also got a 360 release. I kind of touched on this in my video about preferring to play my Warriors games on Xbox consoles, but with this generation, though the PS3 was fully capable of outputting 1080p, most of the games only went up to 720p and require an upscaler to close the gap if you want them to look the best that they can on modern TVs. With the Xbox 360, more games offer a 1080p option, and if they don't, the console has an internal upscaler to get to that resolution. With the first game, the PS3 did look better, but the second and third were pretty well on par. All the footage that you see here is being captured with a PS3 and the M Classic upscaler. It really makes me wish that we had an Xbox 360 port. I just want to enjoy this game at its best.
Pro.
Now here's a pro that I feel like I've been mentioning on every entry of the Dynasty Warriors Gundam series. The first game was limited with how many mobile suits you could use. Then the second one came along and said, hold my beer, and not only added more suits, but let us play as grunt units like the Zaku and the Jim. With the third entry, we got even more mobile suits after adding some from Unicorn and 00, along with some grunt suits from the various series. With Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn having a large focus on story, we get to see another explosion in the roster. The third game had a total of 74 playable mobile suits, with 5 additional for DLC that is no longer available. Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn not only includes those 5 lost DLC characters, but expands the roster up to 123, now including many mobile suits from Unicorn, Gundam Seed, and Gundam Seed Destiny. Since these stories are more explored in this game, it makes sense to add almost everything that you can into this entry's roster. We see 5 suits added from Unicorn, including the Kshatriya, which was DLC in Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3. There are also 14 suits added from Seed, where we only had the Jin, which was added in Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3. Then we see 13 suits added from Seed Destiny, when all we had previously was the Strike Freedom, Infinite Justice, and Destiny Gundams, which were added in the second entry. Finally, the 4 characters and suits from 00 that were added in the third entry thanks to DLC are also here. On top of all of this, Luna Maria Hawk, a playable character since Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2, finally gets to pilot her gunner Zaku Warrior. It's only a 4-hit combo suit, which is a bit disappointing considering how long she's been playable, but I'm still happy to see her finally able to pilot her own mobile suit. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but this specific Zaku Warrior is special to me because it was my first Gunpla kit. I bought this Chinese ripoff a while back and it nearly got me out of the hobby entirely because it lacked articulation and detail. I would later get the kit that I deserved with the Master Grade Luna Maria Hawk Gunner Zaku Warrior, but it unfortunately fell off of a shelf and broke. Eventually, I will replace it and collect more of this specific suit, but I thought I'd tell this story as to why I've been mentioning her in other reviews other than the fact that she's a playable character and doesn't get her own mobile suit. But these suits aren't the only ones that we get to see either. There are 6 suits available for DLC, which include the GP-03S Stamen from Stardust Memory, the full armor unicorn from the last couple episodes of the anime, Crossbone Gundam X1 Kai, which has never been seen in an anime yet, the Endless Waltz version of Wing Zero, which is absolutely insane to see, and on top of all of that, a joke suit that was provided as a pre-order bonus in Japan, the Bear Guy. I just think it's hilarious that we still got this gem of a suit in the West. All of the mobile suits and pilots are split up into their own series on a character select wheel that feels very reminiscent of what we see in Warriors Orochi. This really helps someone like me who knows a lot about Gundam but doesn't know it all. When I see a series I haven't watched before, I want to experience what that series' mobile suits have to offer. Even though I love the Luna Maria Hawk Gunner Zaku Warrior, I have never watched an episode of Seed Destiny, so seeing the Zaku Phantoms was also pretty cool. The last thing I'll mention about the roster is something that I've been saying since Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2. Now, I fully understood why they weren't playable, but seeing them in the game as enemies still made me want to know what it would be like to take them into battle. But with Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn, we finally get to experience what it's like to pilot the gigantic mobile armors like the Psycho Gundam. We even get to see the addition of a new mobile armor from Seed Destiny with the Destroy Gundam. It's a lot of fun to jump into a stage and decimate the enemy army with one of these. Suffice to say that with all of the replayability this game offers thanks to story and ultimate mode, you won't be bored thanks to the expansive roster of robots. Now, even though the roster is filled to the brim with playable mobile suits, I can't help but complain about some of the weird decisions and still missing suits. First off, I know we finally get to play as mobile armors, but they aren't quite as much fun as I wanted them to be. It's still a nice experience to tower over top of all the other mobile suits, but the combos given to them just isn't up to snuff. They're kind of in between the 4-hit combo of something like the Zaku Phantoms and a grunt suit like the Jim. You still have a 4-hit combo of normal attacks, but no matter when you hit your charge attack, it's going to be the exact same. There's also no dash attacks, and your Musou is the exact same every time as well. They're still quite destructive, so you shouldn't feel like you're being handicapped necessarily. But it would have been nice to have at least different charge attacks that would match the ones that they would pull on you as an enemy. There are also a few mobile armors that remain unplayable. First off, Dark Gundam is not playable, which might be due to it being a stationary mobile armor that attacks with the Gundam heads. But you could have designed its mobile fighter mode for the player to use. Its Musou could have transformed it into the mobile armor mode that we see as an enemy, and it could have spewed gas on the enemies around it. Then there are 2 mobile armors that are missing from the Unicorn series that do hinder the execution of its story. The first one that appears in the anime is this Shamblo piloted by Lonnie Garvey. I think it would have been great to include this even if, like the Dark Gundam, it wasn't playable. But there's one mobile armor that I feel should have been included and playable, that one being the Neo Xiang. This is the big finale moment for Unicorn, so why it's not here is completely beyond me. You wouldn't really have to go too far to create it either. The design could have been based off the Alpha Azero, which is already playable. Every series story mode also includes a special stage to play as the big mobile armor from that anime. The only ones missing these stages is Unicorn and Seed. I do understand the latter because there isn't really a big mobile armor that stands out, but Unicorn had 2 mobile armors that could have been included, with the Neo Xiang being my choice for the special stage. I also mentioned this in the last video, but with Wing being the series that I grew up with, I am very disappointed that we're missing just enough suits to lose out on a Wing-focused story. All we would have needed is the Sandrock, Ultron, Leo, and Maganak. Though that would only let us cover the latter part of the story after everyone gets their new mobile suits, we could also include the Ares, Tallgeese Wing, Death Scythe, and Shenlong if you're feeling like giving us a decent Wing story. I know this would mean adding 9 more mobile suits to an already stacked roster, but I think it would have been nice to include at least Sandrock and Ultron, who are perfectly built for a Warrior-style game. I mean, they could have even provided this to us as a DLC package along with the Wing story, and I absolutely would have bought this this for another $20 to $30. We're also still missing the Gundam Spiegel for Schwartz, even though he's a playable character. As well, for some reason they gave Angelo his purple Gira Zulu instead of the Rosen Zulu that he pilots in the anime. I played this game before actually watching Unicorn, and I remember seeing this and going, wait a minute, that looks completely different from what he pilots in Reborn. It also feels weird to see only one suit under both Gundam F91 and X. At least with Stardust Memory, Victory, G Gundam, and Turn A, we get either an antagonist or grunt suit to go with it. I know these aren't the focus of the story, but at least include someone to pair with the protagonist of these series. I just feel so bad for them. All alone on the character select screen. So sad.
Pro.
With each entry that's been made in this series, there's been a plethora of little tweaks and changes that have made a pretty big difference. This next part will make up a fairly big chunk of this pro, but I need to talk about the combat changes in Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn. The biggest change from Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 is that I am glad to report, and you've probably seen it throughout the gameplay so far, but we are back to the open maps for battlefields. On top of that, all the stages are brand spanking new. With Dynasty Warriors Gundam 2, although it kept the open map battles, it also reused a lot of stages from the first game. Though it wasn't enough to really bother me because they gave them all a new coat of paint, the real issue was with Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3, where they made the battlefields just a handful of bases connected by these small corridors. There are still parts of that in different maps, but it's a much better mix of things. Another thing that Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 took away from us were space battles, which make a triumphant return with Reborn. On top of that, there's not much change to the combat controls, but what has been added really does change the way that you play. First of all, some movesets have been updated yet again, like the C2 for Gundam. But what has changed for all the suits is the ability to do a charged attack. Not a charge attack, but a charged attack. If you hold down triangle, your suit will start to glow. Once it does that, you can let it go to do a giant shot attack that will cause any killed units to blow up and damage nearby enemies. If you're strong enough, you can wipe out an entire wave of enemies using this move. When you're fighting against mobile armors, this is also very useful because you'll be able to cause a decent amount of damage to them by blowing up troops around them. What I like to do is start a normal string of attacks and press triangle to finish the combo, but I hold down triangle until the attack animation is done. Then I release my charge shot on the group of damaged enemies. It's so satisfying to do this, and you might need to do this on harder difficulties as you might not be able to take out enemies as quickly as you may think. Rage attacks also make a return from Dynasty Warriors 5 and 8, but this time called burst attacks. This is also how partner attacks are executed. When you enter burst mode, this is also how suits like Unicorn and Banshee transform into destroy mode. When you use your Musou to finish the burst state, your partner will come out and do their attack. Musous have also been updated where you have up to 3 bars, which is based on the level of the plan that you have equipped. Musous also only cost 1 bar now, rather than being extended if you have more than 1 bar filled. That being said, once your pilot reaches a certain level, if you have 2 or more bars filled, you can hold down the circle button to do a different Musou attack that might be better depending on the situation. Aerial Musos also only cost 1 bar. In the previous games, I would hold off and only use it against the final enemy or if I was in a pinch. Base typing also matters more now because certain bases will spawn guerrilla units that will attack opposing bases and generals. If you want to kill more units in a stage, you can leave these bases occupied by your enemies so you can take out more troops. Or if you want to complete the stage quickly, you can take them out first. On top of that, licenses are no longer a thing. Instead, all you need to do is complete a specific stage or complete a certain amount of stages as that mobile suit to unlock it for everyone. For 6-hit combo suits as well as mobile armors, you need to play through 10 stages. As 4-hit combo suits, you need to play through 5 stages. And as grunt suits, you need to play 3 stages. Pro tip, you can grab yourself a second controller and have a player 2 using another suit that you want to unlock for everyone else and can knock 2 birds with 1 stone. The only thing that will hinder you from being able to pilot all suits is whether or not your pilot is a new type. But luckily, all you need to do is kill around 5,000 total enemies to make that pilot a new type. This also gives you a card as part of the card collection on top of that. All in all, there is just so many things to do, and every step of the way you are being rewarded one way or another. Alright folks, it's time to take away all of the praise that I've been saying about this game and flush it straight down the toilet. Though there is a lot of changes that I really liked, there is a handful of issues that really bugged the crap out of me, like the story mode. Every game previously has also included the story of Gundam Double Zeta. Vita. Though I haven't actually watched the anime, the stages we got in the last 3 games are still great. We do still have the mobile suits, and we can now play as the Queen Mantha, so why the hell can't we play through this story? Also, I mentioned earlier that this game was only ever released in the West on the PS3, even though the first 3 entries had ports on 360. For some reason, Bandai Namco decided not to do that here. As well, they decided not to have an English dub for this game, even though the last 3 games had an English dub. I found a lot of Japanese publishers were dabbling more in removing dubs from their series around this time to cut costs. Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn also came out at a time when Sony of America didn't want physical versions of games to be available if they didn't also include an English dub. So if you live in North America, good luck getting your hands on a physical copy. Not only will you not be able to purchase the DLC off of the North American store and have it work with your physical copy, but you have to choose whether or not you want to import it from Europe and pay over $100 thanks to a limited release, or pay a more appropriate amount for a Japanese copy at the cost of not being able to understand the text. If you're choosing to import from Japan though, you do have more options than the West because they also received a port on Vita. And just like the other Japanese versions, it has music from the anime. This game would have been incredible on the go. I kept saying that it sucked that there wasn't a portable version of a previous Dynasty Warriors Gundam, especially the 3rd entry. And here we are without a Vita port in English. But beware, if you find yourself searching on the Vita store, the DLC for some reason will appear there available for purchase. I tried to do some research on why, but I couldn't find any confirmation. My theory is that either they had originally planned to release an English port on Vita and the DLC had already been planned and they forgot to remove the cross-platform purchase when they released it, or they never planned a Vita port, but since the DLC released as a cross-purchase in Japan, when they released it in the West, they accidentally kept the cross-purchase option from the Japanese listing. Lastly, I could have forgiven the lack of physical in North America and the lack of Vita port in the West if we got this one thing that I think everybody would have wanted. When Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn first released, I heard so many people talking about the fact that we totally should have got a port on the PS4. Even if it was just released at a higher resolution, I would have loved to see this. Especially since Sony of America was a-okay with a physical release on their latest platform, even without an English dub. The thing is, in the West, it made perfect sense for us. Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn released in North America on July 1st, 2014, and the PS4 released on November 15th of 2013. So it absolutely feels like a missed opportunity. But though it feels weird for us that the PS4 released before Reborn, in Japan the game released on December 19th, 2013, while the PS4 released on February 22nd, 2014. So for the Japanese market, they got the console a couple months later. But you would think that Bandai Namco and Koei Tecmo would have had dev kits around the same time as the development of Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn. So I say that there is no excuse that this game did not receive a PS4 port. I mean, Dynasty Warriors 8 Extreme Legends came out a month before Gundam Reborn in Japan, and it received a PS4 port. I can only imagine what this game would have looked like if it received the same treatment. At the time of writing this script, it is April Fool's, and all 4 Dynasty Warriors Gundam games were promoted as coming to Steam, and all I can say is this shit on Steam or a modern console would absolutely make bank. In the end, this retrospective of all 4 Dynasty Warriors Gundam games has been a whole lot of fun to go through. Going back and popping the final achievement for the first game, working on the second game, and realizing just how much I enjoyed it over the third, which I realized how much of a missed opportunity Bandai Namco and Koei Tecmo stumbled on with the lack of a portable release. Finally coming around to Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn and just enjoying my time overall. But even though I enjoyed my time with each game, it's time to get down to brass tacks. I'm not going to go over each Gundam game like I did during some previous Musou Mays, so if you want to see how the other games stack up in comparison to this entry, check out the Musou May 2022 playlist with all of the videos. Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn made a bunch of changes from the third entry that I absolutely love and kept me coming back, even though I'm at the point where I just need to grind so I can take on the true Dynasty Warriors Gundam stage. But overall, I just love it. I do wish that we got this on PS4 or even on PC. Without a doubt in my mind, Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn is not only one of the best in the Gundam series, but it's also one of the best in the Musou franchise. To me, it reaches similar heights to Dynasty Warriors 8 and Hyrule Warriors, and that is why I give Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn a 9.5 out of 10. Bringing back the open map battlefields after the not so fun Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 was so good. The combat is always flowing thanks to the charged shot attack, and the game has just the right level of challenge where an 8-star hard difficulty stage will kill you in 4 to 5 hits. The amount of playable mobile suits rivals that of Warriors Auto-Chi 3 Ultimate with over 120 options, and unlike Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3, the DLC is still available for purchase. Eventually, I do plan on covering the Vita release in an episode of the Import Report and the DLC on Expanded, but for now, I'm going to continue enjoying what we got here. Even though the overall graphics are a little on the dull side compared to the second and third entry, I don't mind the way that this game looks. As well, even though there are other mobile suits I'd like to see included in this game, the roster is pretty stacked to begin with. Honestly, to me, the only thing that would make Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn better would be a port on PC and modern consoles. I just want to be able to play it at a higher resolution and a steadier frame rate without resorting to emulation and losing my progress on that sweet platinum trophy. If this ever gets ported to PC or modern consoles, you can say goodbye to me for a couple of months afterwards as I enjoy my new life as a hermit, because I will be absolutely lost in playing through this game once again. Anyways, everybody, thank you so much for watching my review of Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and subscribe for more. Comment with your thoughts below and let me know which of the Dynasty Warriors Gundam was your favorite and which Gundam series is your favorite. If you'd like to help support this channel and what I do here, you can join the guild just like these awesome people that you're seeing on screen right now. You can join them at the end of every single video for just $1 a month over on Patreon. Or if you'd like to help support the channel on a one-time donation, you can join the volunteer unit over on Ko-fi. There are other rewards and other tiers as well, so check out the links that you see on screen, and I will see you all down in the comments.